Hi, my name is Rebecca Thompson-Hitt. I'm the founder and executive director of the Consciously Parenting Project. And I want to talk to you today about the brain stoplight. The brain stoplight is the tool I developed to understand what's happening in our brains. This has everything to do with parenting because we all have those moments where we as a parent all of a sudden aren't thinking clearly and nothing makes sense, and we start sounding like our parents or saying those things that we said we would never say. And we have those times when our kids who, wow, they're so smart, all of a sudden are not. And they're laying on the floor in the grocery store, and you don't understand even why it's happening and how this can be the same child. And so I learned about this concept from a workshop I took from Dr. Bruce Perry, who is a psychiatrist, a brain researcher, and a clinician. And he works with children who've experienced trauma. And in this workshop, he was explaining the 5-part brain. And so it was a little bit more extensive. But I realized that the information could be condensed down a little bit more, and it matched up with what's called the Triune Brain, which is the 3-part brain. Now, it has everything to do with daily life. And so I share this with my clients all the time. And so I wanted to create this so that it was available for people who just wanted to go in and watch it and listen to it and share it. Because I've gotten 3 requests this week from, Rebecca, is there a video I can take people to? So here's the video. So there are 3 parts of your brain. We have our thinking brain, our feeling brain, and our survival brain. They're in 3 physically distinct areas of the brain. And that's important. When we are in our thinking brain, this is the time that we're pretty relaxed, where we're having regular interactions. We can have a conversation, we can have a discussion about something, we can problem solve. This is when you can talk to your child and say, wow, that didn't go well earlier, did it? Let's figure out what we can what we can do to make it feel better for us next time. And your child can chime in. And then later, when they can't remember any of that conversation and they're doing the same thing again, you're like, what's wrong with you? Okay, they're no longer in the same part of their brain, and that's part of what's happening. So when we are in this part of our brain, we have access to our full IQ. So if our IQ is 100, which is the average IQ, we're at 100 right here. So to the best of our ability, we're going to be problem solving the best that we can when we're in this part of our brain. We don't stay here. We don't live here all of the time because things happen, stressors happen, and when that happens, we shift out of this part of our brain and we move into this part of our brain. Now, this part of our brain is the emotional part of our brain. This is necessary for relationship, for connection, for, if you have an experience with a friend who, maybe you are having a really hard time and you have a friend who is able to come and connect with you and really get how you're feeling. Maybe you've just gone through a divorce. Maybe you just had a really rough day. And that person who can come in and just be with you and not try to change it or fix it necessarily, it's a really deep bond that happens in those moments. That's the emotional brain. So it's not something that we want to say, oh, we just want to be on green all the time, because that's the tendency. But where we connect most deeply with one another is actually in this yellow light part of our brain. So I go back to a stoplight. When we see a green light, it means go. Have the conversation. Have a great time. Go outside. Go to the mall. Go do whatever you're going to do. Green, very good for going. Yellow is, well, when we see a yellow light at an intersection, we have 2 choices. We can slow down and stop the car and not go and run the risk of, going into the intersection and someone hitting us, or we speed up to try to get through the intersection. Now, in parenting and in life, when we can recognize those yellow light moments, those moments where maybe some feelings are coming up or our bodies are feeling squirmy or something's just not right, when we can recognize those moments and slow down and connect, we can avoid going into red. Because connection and relationship are the glue that help us keep ourselves together. And when we can actually connect in those moments, we can spare ourselves a lot of pain. But we can't always, and that's okay too. So I'm going to get to red in a minute. But I really like to look at yellow as a fork in the road. It's that moment that when we recognize it, and we can't always recognize it, but when we do, we can say, I'm going to slow down here. These are the moments that when you're trying to get ready to school or trying to get out the door, or, you're in a hurry. Usually it's when we're in a hurry. And if we can slow down in those moments, because we see our child is starting to lose it, we can slow down in those moments and meet them, join them, play with them. Even if it feels like, oh my God, I am so wasting my time right now, the time that you invest right here helps to prevent the same amount of time or longer of you guys being in disconnection, of struggling. And so that's what I found in my family. If I can recognize those moments and connect there, we're doing much better. So in this part of our brain, we lose access to about 25 IQ points. So we then are at about 75 if our IQ is 100. So that's important, because if you've seen the movie Forrest Gump, 75 is a little bit higher than his IQ was. And his ability to problem solve and like think things. I mean, it was just like, and then one day I decided to start running. You know what I'm talking about? And we have these times in our brain too, where we just, you're going to start running. We're not necessarily thinking really clearly, but yellow light is still the point that we can move ourselves back forward, where we can regulate through connection. And, it doesn't end up being disastrous. If we miss those opportunities, then we move back into red, which is our survival brain. Survival brain is our fight, flight, or freeze response. And so these are our primitive responses to stress. So when something happens, and from an evolutionary biological perspective, we're talking about, there is a saber-toothed tiger and I don't have time to sit and think about what I'm going to do about it. And so it actually overrides this part of your brain. They've done brain scans and there's no neural activity happening in this part of the brain when this part is active. And that's significant. That means you're not thinking about it. That means all those crazy things that you do and say where you're like, holy cow, what just happened? The words were coming out of my mouth and I couldn't stop them. It's because there's nothing happening here. Now, the problem is that instead of saber-toothed tigers, we have 2-year-olds. And we have, other stressors that activate that same part of our brain, and we don't even recognize that it's been activated. And so when we're in this part of our brain, we lose access to about 50 IQ points. And when we lose access to those 50 IQ points, well, we're not going to make good choices. We're not going to problem solve things well. We're not going to move through things in a way that honors connection. It's an all for one, I am going to shove your head under the water because I am drowning. And from a biological perspective, that's what it feels like. You've prepared your body for a fight, or to run away, or to freeze because there's nothing else that you can do. So when we can recognize that we're in red, the only thing we can do in this part of our brain is regulate, and our body is primed, whether we're in fight, flight, or freeze, to have energy mobilized into our legs, into our arms. So it's not a thinking time, it's not a thinking place, but it's a time of moving energy, just moving, just finding a way that doesn't hurt yourself or anybody else. And then when you're more regulated, let's see if we can get you back to yellow, where you can then, wow, that was really rough. Let's see what we can do about that. So the brain stoplight is really important as a tool to understand what's happening inside of your own brain and what's happening for your child. So think about the situations where you're really struggling as a parent, or your child is really having a hard time, and say, wow, what brain light state is my child in? Or where am I? Whoa, I am so on red when that happens. And then we can start looking at, what do we need? And how can we move through this? So it's a tool just to get us started. And it's really the foundation of a lot of my work. So if you have questions after you've watched this video, please feel free to send me an email, rebecca@consciouslyparenting.com. Check me out on Facebook. I'm on Facebook on Consciously Parenting, the Consciously Parenting Project. And I've got a website, consciouslyparenting.com, where there's lots of information, and click on the Learning Center, where there are tons of free resources that you can check out that support this idea. Again, this is just one of the ideas that I bring to parents to help them understand and look at relationships in a different way. My whole goal is to help you as a parent connect more in your family and with your kids and with yourself. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.